The exploration vessel Frontier drifted through empty space, its engines humming quietly as the crew worked through another routine day. Captain Daniel Hayes sat in his command chair, watching the stars scroll across the main. Behind him, navigator Karen White called out coordinates while pilot Rachel Ford made minor course corrections. It was their third month away from Earth, and everything had gone smoothly. "Jump drive is charging for the next system," engineer Amy Carter reported from her station. "We'll be ready in 10 minutes. Daniel nodded. They were mapping unexplored regions, adding new star systems to Earth's growing database. Nothing dangerous, nothing complicated, just good, steady work that would help future explorers find their way. Science Officer Brooks studied his displays with interest. "Captain, I'm seeing some unusual energy readings ahead, different from anything in our database." "How different?" Daniel asked. Frowned at his screen. "Very different, like there's some kind of infrastructure out there, big infrastructure." Daniel sat up. Infrastructure meant people, other intelligent life. Earth had hoped for this moment, but they had also prepared the crews to be careful. First contact was tricky. "Amy, hold the jump," Daniel ordered. "Can you tell me more about what you're seeing?" Before could answer, the ship shuddered. Alarms blared across the bridge. Amy's fingers flew over her console, her face going pale. "Jump drive malfunction," she shouted over the noise. "It's engaging on its own, I can't stop it." Daniel gripped his armrests as the ship lurched sideways. The went white, then black, then filled with streaks of color that hurt to look at. The Frontier tumbled through space that wasn't quite space, pulled by forces that shouldn't exist. Then suddenly it stopped. The bridge lights flickered back on. The alarms went quiet. Daniel looked around at his crew. Everyone seemed shaken but unhurt. "Status report," he said, keeping his voice calm. "Hull integrity good," Rachel reported. "No damage to the ship." "Jump drive is offline," Amy said. "Whatever just happened, it burned out half the system. We're not jumping anywhere for a while." Stared at his displays with wide eyes. "Captain, you need to see this." Daniel moved to station and looked at the readings. His stomach dropped. They weren't in unexplored space anymore. They were surrounded by ships, dozens of ships, big ships that dwarfed the Frontier like wolves around a rabbit. "Incoming transmission," Communications Officer Jake announced. "Audio and visual." "Put it on screen," Daniel said, straightening his uniform. The showed an alien face. The creature had gray skin, 4 eyes arranged in a square pattern, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. It wore what looked like a military uniform covered in medals and symbols. "Unknown vessel," the alien said in perfect English, though a computer clearly translated the words. "You have entered the sovereign territory of the Empire. Identify yourself immediately." Daniel took a breath. First contact. This was the moment every explorer both hoped for and feared. "I am Captain Daniel Hayes of the Earth vessel Frontier," he said clearly. "We mean no harm. Our jump drive malfunctioned and brought us here by accident. We apologize for the intrusion and request coordinates to leave your space." The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. It looked confused. "You request coordinates to leave," it repeated slowly. "Yes," Daniel said. "We don't want to cause any trouble. We just need to repair our drive and get back to our own space. If you can point us toward the nearest border, we'll leave as soon as we're able." The alien stared at him for a long moment. Then it spoke to someone off-screen in a harsh, clicking language. Daniel could hear other voices responding, all sounding equally confused. The alien turned back to the screen. "I am commander of the Imperial Fleet. Your response is irregular. Stand by for further instructions." The screen went black. Jake looked at Daniel with worried eyes. "Captain, our sensors are picking up more ships arriving. A lot more ships." "How many?" Daniel asked. 30, 40, still counting." Jake's hands moved across his console. "They're taking up positions around us. We're completely surrounded." Daniel returned to his command chair and pressed the ship-wide intercom. "Attention all crew, this is the captain. We've made contact with an alien civilization called the Empire. We're currently in their space due to a jump drive malfunction. Stay calm, remain at your stations, and follow standard first contact protocols. Engineering teams focus on getting that drive operational. Everyone else continue with your normal duties. I'll keep you informed." Hayes out. He looked at his bridge crew. They were scared, but they were holding together. That was good. Amy, what's your assessment on the drive? He asked. Amy pulled up diagnostic displays. It's bad, Captain. We need to replace several major components. The good news is we have the parts. The bad news is it's going to take time. Maybe 3 days if everything goes perfectly. Can we do anything to speed that up? Not without risking another malfunction, Amy said. These systems are delicate. We rush it, we might end up stranded here permanently. Daniel nodded. Then we do it right, get your best people on it. The flickered back to life. Commander appeared again, but this time an even larger alien sat beside him. This one wore more medals and had scars across its gray skin. I am Admiral, the new alien announced. Commander has informed me of your situation. The Empire does not permit unauthorized entry into our territory. You will power down your weapons and engines. You will submit to boarding parties for inspection. You will provide all technical data about your vessel and your... These are not requests. These are commands. Daniel felt his crew tense around him. He kept his expression neutral. Admiral, we respect your authority in your own space, he said carefully. But we cannot comply with those commands. The Frontier is a civilian vessel operating under Earth law. We have no weapons to power down. Our engines are already offline due to the malfunction. We cannot allow boarding parties or share classified information. What we can do is repair our ship and leave your territory peacefully. The Admiral's eyes narrowed, all 4 of them. You refuse Imperial commands. We decline your demands, Daniel corrected gently. There's a difference. We're not trying to fight you or disrespect you. We simply want to fix our ship and go home. Surely the Empire can understand an accident. Admiral leaned forward. In 3,000 years, no species has entered space and simply asked to leave. You will explain this unusual behavior. Daniel spread his hands. There's nothing to explain. We're explorers, not conquerors. We're not interested in your territory or your politics. We just want to repair our drive and return to Earth. That's all. The Admiral stared at him for a long, uncomfortable moment. Then he spoke to someone off-screen. Daniel could hear multiple alien voices arguing in that harsh, clicking language. Finally, the Admiral turned back. This conversation is not finished. We will discuss terms. Until on the capital world of Prime, the Imperial Council gathered in emergency session. Hundreds of officials filled the grand chamber, their 4 eyes gleaming in the dim light. High Chancellor stood at the center podium, his face grave. This human situation requires immediate attention, he announced. Commander and Admiral report behavior we have never encountered before. These humans claim they want nothing from us except to leave. Counselor, a decorated war hero, rose from his seat. Clearly, they are weak and attempting to buy time. We should destroy their vessel now and send a message to any other species thinking of testing our borders. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Counselor, one of the few scientists on the council, stood next. With respect, we should study them first. In 3,000 years, every species we encountered either attacked us, begged for mercy, or sought vassal status. These humans do none of these things. That is worth understanding. High Chancellor raised one hand for silence. The Empire does not study trespassers. We integrate them or eliminate them. Admiral will demonstrate our power. Then we will offer standard terms. If the humans refuse, we will act accordingly. The vote was swift and unanimous. The Council did what it always did. Back in space, the Frontier's crew worked steadily. Amy Carter floated in zero gravity outside the ship, welding new components into place. Jake handed her tools through the airlock while she worked. Inside, Brooks monitored the surrounding fleet. They're getting more ships, reported to Captain Hayes. We're up to 50 warships now. Daniel nodded from his command chair. Any aggressive movements? No, they're just watching us, waiting. Then we keep working, Daniel said. He pressed the intercom. Amy, how's it going out there? Amy's voice crackled back. Slow but steady, Captain. We're replacing the primary coupling now. After this, we need to recalibrate the whole system, still looking at 2 or 3 days. Keep me posted. Daniel switched channels. Medical Bay, this is the captain. How's everyone holding up? Dr. Lisa Grant responded immediately. A few people are stressed, but nothing serious. I'm keeping everyone busy with routine checkups. Staying busy helps. Good thinking. Let me know if anyone needs to talk. Daniel closed the channel and looked at his bridge crew. They were scared. He could see it in their eyes, in the way they kept glancing at the showing all those warships. But they were holding together. Earth trained its explorers well. The suddenly activated. Admiral appeared, and behind him, Daniel could see an entire command center full of officers. "Captain Hayes," the Admiral said formally, "the Imperial Council has reached a decision. We will now demonstrate the power of the Empire. This is not a threat. This is education. Watch and learn." The screen split to show outside views. The warships began moving into formation. It was beautiful in a terrible way. 50 massive vessels arranging themselves into perfect geometric patterns, their weapons glowing with ready power. One ship fired, not at the frontier but at a nearby asteroid. The rock simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris, just there one moment gone the next. "Impressive," Daniel said honestly. "Your weapons technology is very advanced." Admiral looked pleased. "Now you understand. The Empire is the dominant power in this region of space. 4,000 star systems bow to our authority. Hundreds of species serve under our protection." "I appreciate you showing us," Daniel said calmly. "But it doesn't change our situation. We still just want to repair our ship and leave." The pleased expression vanished from the Admiral's face. "You saw our power and you still refuse terms." "Terms for what?" Daniel asked. "We haven't attacked you, we haven't threatened you. We had an accident and we're fixing it. Why would we need terms?" "Because you are in space," the Admiral said, his voice rising. "Because the Empire has laws and protocols. Because you cannot simply ignore our authority." Daniel leaned forward. "Admiral, I think there's a misunderstanding here. We're not ignoring you. We're listening to everything you say. We just don't agree that we need permission to leave. We're not trying to join your empire or fight your empire. We're trying to go home." "Impossible," the Admiral said flatly. "You will accept vassal status. You will share your technology. You will allow military observers aboard your vessel. You will provide detailed information about your and its defenses. These are the standard terms for integration into the Empire." "We decline," Daniel said simply. "You decline?" "Yes, we're not interested in integration. We're not interested in becoming part of your empire. We appreciate the offer, but no thank you." The Admiral's 4 eyes widened. "This is not an offer. This is Imperial law." "It's your law," Daniel pointed out. "We're not part of your empire, so your laws don't apply to us. We have our own laws. Earth law says we're a free and independent people. We don't recognize anyone's authority to tell us otherwise." Silence filled the bridge. Every crew member stared at their captain with a mixture of pride and terror. He had just told the galaxy's dominant power that their laws meant nothing to Earth. Admiral spoke to someone off-screen, his voice sharp and angry in that clicking language. Then he turned back to Daniel. "You are either very brave or very foolish," the Admiral said coldly. "Perhaps both. I will give you 1 cycle to reconsider. Repair your vessel if you wish, but know this. When the cycle ends, you will submit to Imperial authority or you will die. There is no third option." The screen went black. Rachel Ford let out a breath she had been holding. "Captain, did we just declare war on an empire?" "No," Daniel said firmly. "We just declined to surrender to them. There's a difference." Checked his displays. "Captain, we're getting signals from other sources. Multiple alien species are monitoring this situation. This standoff is being broadcast across the region." "How many species are watching?" Daniel asked. "At least a dozen that I can identify, maybe more." Looked up. "Sir, I think we just became very famous." Jake's console beeped. "Captain, incoming message from Earth. They received our emergency beacon." "Put it through to my ready room. You have the bridge." Daniel walked into his small office and closed the door. The screen showed Fleet Admiral Cole, his superior, back on Earth. She looked tired but calm. "Daniel, we got your report," she said. "You've gotten yourself into quite a situation." "Yes, ma'am," Daniel said. "They want us to become part of their empire. I told them no." "Good," said, surprising him. "Earth's position is clear. We explore space to learn, not to conquer or to submit. We will not bow to any empire, no matter how powerful. But Daniel, we also won't throw away lives needlessly. If fighting is unavoidable, you run. Understood?" "Understood, ma'am. We're working on repairs now." "The whole planet is watching this," said. "Every news network is covering it. You and your crew represent humanity now. Show them who we are. Show them what we stand for, and then come home safe." "We'll do our best, ma'am." I know you will. Earth sends its support, Cole out. The screen went dark. Daniel sat alone in his office for a moment, feeling the weight of what was happening. Then he stood, straightened his uniform, and walked back onto the bridge. Status, he asked. Repairs are at 30%, Amy reported. We're actually ahead of schedule. Good, everyone, listen up. Daniel looked at each crew member in turn. I know you're scared, I am too, but we're going to get through this. We're going to fix our ship and we're going to go home. They think they can force us to obey them. They're wrong, we're free people. We stay free. Understood? Yes, sir, the bridge crew said together. Across the galaxy, millions watched the standoff unfold. The leader gathered his council to observe the human vessel. Look at them, one counselor said, pointing at the display showing the frontier surrounded by warships. They must be terrified. Then why do they continue working so calmly? Asked. Watch their crew. They are repairing their ship as if the fleet around them does not exist. The council watched in silence as human engineers floated outside their vessel, welding and adjusting components. Inside the ship, other humans went about their duties with steady focus. A human teacher even conducted lessons for the crew's children in the education section. They have children aboard, another counselor gasped, during a military confrontation. It is an exploration vessel, explained. Families travel together, but look at the children. They are not panicking. The adults have not filled them with fear. On the Union's monitoring station, observers studied the humans with intense curiosity. She had spent 20 years analyzing military tactics, always wondering if anyone could stand against them. Now she watched a species that wasn't standing against the Empire at all. They were simply ignoring it. Replay the captain's last transmission, she ordered her assistant. The recording played again. Captain Hayes speaking calmly to Admiral, explaining that laws did not apply to Earth. The human showed no fear, no aggression. He simply stated facts as if they were obvious. He truly believes it, whispered. He believes his freedom is not something the Empire can take away. Her assistant looked worried. But the Empire can destroy them. Power makes right in this galaxy. Does it? Asked. Or have we simply believed that for so long that we forgot to question it? Aboard the Frontier, life continued with surprising normalcy. Dr. Lisa Grant made her rounds through the ship, checking on crew members. She found teacher in the education section, working with 5 children aged 6 to 12. How are they doing? Lisa asked quietly. Better than I expected, said. We're studying Earth history. I'm teaching them about the American Revolution when colonies told an empire they would not obey anymore. Lisa smiled. Appropriate lesson for the moment. That's what I thought, said. The children need to understand what's happening in terms they can grasp. We're not rebels or warriors. We're just people who said no to someone trying to control us. In the ship's small garden section, botanist Greg Palmer tended to the hydroponic plants. Security officer found him there, carefully trimming tomato vines. How can you focus on plants right now? Asked. Greg looked up with a gentle smile. Because these plants still need care, because the crew still needs food, because if I panic it doesn't help anyone, better to do something useful. Sat down on a bench. Doesn't it scare you, all those warships out there? Of course it scares me, Greg admitted. But Captain Hayes has a plan. We repair the drive, we leave, simple. Worrying won't make the repairs go faster. You really think they'll let us just leave? Greg pruned another vine thoughtfully. I think they're more confused than we are. They've probably never met anyone who wasn't impressed by their power. We're impressed. We just don't think their power gives them the right to control us. Outside the ship, Amy Carter worked with her engineering team to install the final major component. Through her helmet radio, she could hear Jake reading out measurements from inside. Amy, you've been out there for 6 hours, Jake said. Want me to send someone to relieve you? Almost done, Amy replied, adjusting her welding torch. This coupling is tricky. Rather finish it myself than explain it to someone else. The ships are moving again, Jake warned, getting closer. Amy glanced at the massive warships drifting nearer. They were beautiful in a threatening way, all sharp angles and glowing weapons. Let them watch. Maybe they'll learn something about engineering. Jake laughed. You're welding a spaceship while an empire's fleet surrounds you, and you're worried about teaching them engineering. Why not? Amy said. Knowledge is knowledge. If they want to watch, they might as well learn. On the bridge, Brooks noticed something interesting in his readings. "Captain, I'm picking up tight beam communications between several of the alien species watching us. They're talking about us, but not to us." "Can you tell what they're saying?" Daniel asked. "Some of it, they are debating whether to make contact with Earth. They are discussing defensive implications. There are at least 3 other species I can't identify, but they all seem very interested in how this plays out." Rachel Ford looked up from her navigation console. "Sir, do you think they know the whole galaxy is watching?" "I'm certain they do," Daniel said. "That's probably why they haven't attacked yet. They're worried about looking weak if we escape, but also worried about looking brutal if they destroy a peaceful ship." "So we're in a political standoff," Rachel said. "We're in a standoff between our principles and theirs," Daniel corrected. "They believe might makes right. We believe freedom is inherent. Neither side wants to back down." They activated without warning, but this time it wasn't Admiral. It was a younger officer with fewer scars and a less decorated uniform. "Captain Hayes, I am Lieutenant," the officer said. "I speak to you against orders, so please keep this brief. Many young officers question what is happening here. You entered our space by accident. You have shown no hostility. You simply wish to leave. Why does the Empire prevent this?" Daniel considered his answer carefully. "Lieutenant, I think your Empire is used to species that need its permission to exist. Earth doesn't need anyone's permission. We exist because we exist. We're free because freedom is our nature, not because someone grants it to us." "This concept is difficult for to understand," admitted. "We have always been the strongest. The strongest make the rules. This has been true for 3,000 years. "Being strongest doesn't make you right," Daniel said gently. "It just makes you strong. Real authority comes from respect, not fear. People follow leaders they trust, not leaders they're afraid of." Sfour eyes blinked rapidly. "You are either very wise or very naive. I have not decided which." "Maybe both," Daniel said with a small smile. "Lieutenant, thank you for talking to me. It helps to know there are who question." "There are more than you think," said quietly. "But we are not in positions of power yet." The screen went dark. Looked at Daniel with raised eyebrows. "Sir, I think you just started a revolution." "I started nothing," Daniel said. "I just told the truth. What they do with it is their choice." Hours passed. The repairs continued steadily. The fleet maintained its position, waiting for High Chancellor's final decision. The galaxy watched and wondered what would happen when an unstoppable empire met people who simply refused to acknowledge that empire's authority. In the Frontier's mess hall, crew members gathered for dinner. They talked quietly, sharing stories and jokes. Chef Martin Cross served his best meal, knowing people needed comfort food. The mood was tense but not panicked. They were scared, yes, but they trusted their captain. They trusted their training. They trusted each other. Corinne White, the navigator, sat with a group of engineers. "How much longer?" she asked. 12 hours, maybe less," one engineer replied. "The hard part is done. Now we just need to calibrate everything and run tests." "Then what?" Corinne asked. "We just activate the drive and jump." "That's the plan," the engineer said. "Captain Hayes says we're leaving whether they give permission or not." "Good," Corinne said firmly. "Earth doesn't ask permission. Earth doesn't need permission." Across the mess hall, similar conversations happened at every table. The crew was finding their courage in their shared belief. They were explorers. They were free people. No empire could change that simply by surrounding them with warships. On the bridge, Daniel stood at the main, staring at the fleet. Jake approached him quietly. "Captain, can I ask you something?" Jake said. "Of course." "What if they really do attack us when we try to leave? We can't fight 50 warships." Daniel nodded slowly. "You're right, we can't fight them. But Jake, fighting isn't our only option. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is try to live your life despite the threats. Sometimes saying no to violence is stronger than any weapon. Even if it gets us killed." "Even then," Daniel said, "because if we die free, we die as humans. If we surrender and become part of their empire, we lose something more important than life. We lose who we are." Jake thought about that. "I hope it doesn't come to that." "So do I," Daniel said honestly. "But if it does, we face it together, and we face it as free people. That's all I can promise you." The night cycle began. Half the crew slept while the other half worked. The repairs moved forward hour by the final hours of repair work passed in tense silence. Amy Carter ran the last diagnostic check on the jump drive, her hands steady despite her racing heart. The numbers on her screen all showed green. After 72 hours of constant work, the Frontier was ready to jump. "Captain, jump drive is operational," Amy announced on the bridge. "All systems are running at full capacity. We can leave whenever you give the order." Daniel Hayes stood from his command chair and looked at his crew. They had worked without rest, without complaint, without giving in to fear. He felt proud of every single one of them. "Excellent work, everyone," he said. "Rachel, plot a course to the nearest border of space. Karen, calculate jump coordinates for Earth once we're clear. Monitor the fleet for any changes." Captain said quietly, "They're moving. All 50 ships are repositioning. They're forming a blockade pattern." Daniel nodded. He had expected this. The Empire would not simply let them leave. That would mean admitting their authority was not absolute. "Open a channel to Admiral," Daniel ordered. The flickered to life. The Admiral appeared, his face grave and his 4 eyes hard as stone. Behind him, Daniel could see the command center filled with officers watching the confrontation. "Captain Hayes," the Admiral said formally, "my sensors indicate your vessel is now capable of faster-than-light travel." "That's correct," Daniel confirmed. "Our repairs are complete. We're ready to leave your space." "The cycle I gave you has ended," Admiral continued. "You have had time to consider Imperial terms. What is your decision?" Daniel took a breath. This was the moment. Everything came down to what he said next. "Admiral, we thank you for your patience during our repairs. We appreciate that you did not interfere with our work, but our decision remains the same. We decline to join your empire. We decline to share our technology. We decline to accept observers aboard our ship. We are going home." The bridge was silent. Every crew member held their breath. Admiral's face darkened. "You understand what this means? You understand that I have orders from the High Chancellor himself. Submit or be destroyed. Those are your only options." "No," Daniel said quietly. "Those are the only options you're willing to see, but there's always another choice. We're choosing to leave peacefully. We hope you choose to let us go." "I cannot let you go," the Admiral said, and for the first time, Daniel heard something like regret in his voice. "The Empire has laws, the Empire has traditions. If I allow you to leave without submission, I show weakness. Other species will see this. They will question our authority. I cannot permit that." "Then you're about to learn something about humans," Daniel said. "We don't need your permission. Rachel, prepare to jump." "Jump coordinates locked," Rachel reported, her voice shaking slightly. "Ready on your command, Captain." Admiral leaned forward. "If you attempt to flee, my fleet will fire. You cannot outrun our weapons. You will die." "Maybe," Daniel admitted, "but we'll die free, and that matters more than you understand. This is our final communication, Admiral. We wish you well. We hold no anger toward you or your people, but we're leaving now. Goodbye." He nodded to Jake, who cut the transmission. They showed the fleet instead, 50 massive warships with weapons glowing bright and hot. Daniel pressed the ship-wide intercom. "Attention all crew. This is the captain. We're about to attempt our jump home. They may fire on us, they may not. Either way, I want you to know that serving with you has been the greatest honor of my life. You've shown courage and dignity in impossible circumstances. Whatever happens in the next few minutes, you've made Earth proud. You've made me proud. Strap in and hold on. Hayes out." He sat down in his command chair and fastened his safety harness. Around him, the bridge crew did the same. Rachel's hands hovered over the jump controls, watched the fleet with wide eyes. Jake gripped his console. Karen whispered something that might have been a prayer. "Rachel," Daniel said calmly, "take us home." Rachel's finger pressed the jump button. The Frontier's engines roared to life. Power flooded through the ship, building toward the critical moment when space itself would fold and tear. On the warships responded instantly. Weapons that could destroy asteroids turned toward the small human vessel. Energy readings spiked across displays. "They're charging weapons, all 50 ships. They're really going to fire." "Hold course," Daniel ordered. "Keep the jump sequence running." Seconds stretched into eternity. The jump drive whined as it built power. The weapons glowed brighter and brighter. And across the galaxy, millions of beings watching the live transmission held their breath. The leader stood before his council. "They are really doing it. They are really choosing freedom over survival." On the station, Observer whispered, "Come on, humans. Show us it's possible. Show us that empires don't have to be obeyed." Aboard the flagship, Admiral's hand hovered over the fire command. His officers watched him, waiting for the order. The entire command center was silent. All four of his eyes were fixed on the human ship. "Admiral," one officer said quietly, "they are almost ready to jump. If we are going to fire, it must be now." Admiral did not move. He watched the frontier on his displays, saw the small vessel trembling with building energy. He thought about 3,000 years of imperial tradition. He thought about the orders from the High Chancellor. He thought about what it meant to be the strongest power in the galaxy. And he thought about Lieutenant's question: why does the Empire prevent a peaceful ship from leaving? "Admiral," the officer said urgently, "now or never." The Frontier's jump drive reached critical power. Space around the ship began to shimmer and bend. Reality itself prepared to tear open and swallow the vessel. Admiral's hand moved. He pressed the communication button instead of the weapons button. "All ships," he transmitted to his fleet, "hold fire. Repeat, hold fire, let them go." Shock rippled through the command center. Officers turned to stare at their admiral in disbelief. "Sir," one brave officer questioned, "the High Chancellor's orders were clear." "I am aware of my orders," Admiral said, his voice hard. "I choose to disobey them. These humans have done nothing wrong. They stumbled into our space by accident and they wish to leave. Let them leave. I will answer to the Chancellor myself." On the Frontier's bridge watched his sensors in amazement. "Captain, their weapons are powering down, all of them. They're not firing." Daniel did not allow himself to hope, not yet. Maintain jump sequence. The drive hit maximum power. Space tore open in front of the Frontier, revealing a tunnel of twisted light and impossible colors. The ship lurched forward, pulled by forces beyond normal physics. The last thing the fleet saw was the Frontier sliding sideways into that tier in space, there one moment and gone the next. Empty space remained where the human ship had been. Silence filled every command center, every observation station, every vessel watching across the galaxy. The humans had done it. They had simply left. No battle, no surrender, no negotiation. They had looked at the galaxy's dominant power and walked away. Admiral sat back in his chair, his four eyes closed. Around him, his officers waited for explanation, for orders, for something to make sense of what had just happened. "Log this," he said quietly. "The human vessel Frontier encountered forces. They requested coordinates to leave our space. We provided no interference with their departure. That is the official record." "But Admiral," an officer protested, "the High Chancellor will demand full truth." "That is the full truth," Admiral said, opening his eyes. "They asked to leave, I let them leave. Everything else is politics and pride, and I am tired of both." Across the galaxy, reactions poured in. The Council erupted in debate. The Union called emergency sessions. Dozens of species that had bowed to authority began asking themselves dangerous questions. If the humans could simply leave, why couldn't they? On the capital world, High Chancellor received the news. He sat alone in his private chamber, watching the recording of the Frontier's departure. He watched it 3 times, trying to understand what had happened. The humans had not defeated the Empire. They had not outwitted it or outfought it. They had simply refused to acknowledge its authority. They had treated the galaxy's dominant power as irrelevant to their existence. And somehow, that was more damaging than any military defeat. Called for his advisors. Emergency meetings would run all night. The Council would demand explanations. Admiral would face charges of disobedience. The entire structure of imperial authority was shaking. All because one small ship full of humans decided that freedom was not something empires could take away. The Frontier tumbled through jump space, racing toward home. On the bridge, the crew began to realize they were alive. They had survived. More than that, they had won, not by fighting, but by simply refusing to surrender who they were. Daniel Hayes sat in his command chair, exhausted but relieved. "Rachel, how long until we reach Earth?" "6 hours, Captain," Rachel said, and her voice broke with emotion. 6 hours until we're home." "Good," Daniel said. "Get some rest, everyone. We'll write our reports later. For now, we just need to breathe." The crew dispersed slowly, heading to their quarters in a daze. Amy Carter found Greg Palmer in the garden section, staring at his tomato plants. "We made it," Amy said softly. "We made it," Greg agreed. "We said no to an empire and we lived to tell about it." Do you think they'll come after us? Amy asked. Greg considered the question. I don't think so. We showed them something they didn't expect. We showed them that power isn't everything. That changed something. I don't know what, but something important. Throughout the ship, similar conversations happened. The crew processed what they had experienced. What they had the frontier emerged from jump space near Earth's moon. Sunlight streamed through the bridge windows, warm and familiar. Karen White fought back tears as she saw the blue planet growing larger on the... We're home, she whispered. Captain Daniel Hayes allowed himself a small smile. Open a channel to Earth Defense Command. Channel open, sir, Jake reported. Earth Defense Command, this is Captain Daniel Hayes of the exploration vessel Frontier, requesting permission to return to dock. The response came immediately. Frontier, this is Earth Defense Command. Permission granted. Welcome home, Captain. The whole planet has been waiting for you. As the ship descended toward the orbital station, the crew could see dozens of vessels surrounding them. Not warships but civilian ships. News vessels, transport ships, private craft. Earth had come to welcome them home. Daniel pressed the ship-wide intercom. Attention all crew, we're home, we made it. Thank you for your courage, your skill, and your faith. When we dock, take time with your families, rest. We'll handle the reports and debriefings later. For now, just be home, that's an order. The crew cheered. Through the ship, people hugged each other, cried, laughed. They had faced an empire and survived. They had stood for their principles and won. Not with weapons or threats, but with simple dignity and refusal to surrender who they were. 3 days later, Daniel stood in front of the Earth Senate Committee. Senators from every nation sat in a horseshoe formation, watching him with intense interest. Behind them, news cameras broadcast the testimony to the entire planet. Senator Cole, now leading the committee, spoke first. Captain Hayes, your report has been read by this committee and by the global leadership. We have also reviewed all recordings of your encounter with the Empire. We have questions. I understand, Senator, Daniel said. I'll answer anything I can. Why didn't you try to negotiate? Another senator asked. Why not seek a peaceful agreement with the... Because they weren't offering negotiation, Daniel explained. They were offering surrender. They wanted us to join their empire, share our technology, accept their authority. Those weren't terms for peace. Those were terms for submission. But you risked your ship and crew by refusing, the senator pressed. Wouldn't cooperation have been safer? Daniel met the senator's eyes. Safe for who? If we surrendered to we would have told them that Earth bows to anyone with bigger weapons. That fear controls us. That we're willing to give up freedom for safety. I couldn't do that. My crew couldn't do that. We're explorers. We explore as free people or we don't explore at all. Senator Cole leaned forward. Captain, you've become something of a hero to many people on Earth, but others argue that you've made humanity a target. The Empire now knows we exist. They know we refused their authority. What if they come here seeking revenge? Daniel considered the question carefully. Senator, they already knew we existed the moment we entered their space. Hiding from them wouldn't have worked. As for revenge, I don't think that's what concerns them. We showed them something they've never seen before. A species that doesn't need their approval. That changes their whole understanding of power. How so? Cole asked. The Empire believes might makes right, Daniel said. They think being the strongest means they get to make all the rules. We showed them that strength without consent is just bullying. Real authority comes from respect, not fear. I think some of their people, like Lieutenant, already understood that. We just made it obvious. The committee questioned him for 3 more hours. They asked about technology, about tactics, about his decision-making process. Daniel answered everything honestly. He had nothing to hide. He had done what he believed was right. When the hearing ended, Daniel walked outside the Senate building. A crowd had gathered. Thousands of people waited to see him. When he emerged, they erupted in applause. Daniel stopped, surprised. He hadn't expected this. A reporter pushed through the crowd with a microphone. Captain Hayes, people are calling you the man who said no to an empire. How does that feel? Daniel thought about his answer. I'm not a hero. I'm just a ship captain who made a choice. But if people take inspiration from that choice, then I'm glad. Freedom is worth fighting for. Sometimes fighting means saying no and accepting the consequences. That's all we did. What's next for you? The reporter asked. I'm going back to teaching at the Naval Academy, Daniel said. Future explorers need to learn what we learned out there. That Earth stands alone but stands free. that we explore the galaxy on our terms, not anyone else's terms. Over the following weeks, Earth's leadership made critical decisions. They would continue space exploration, but with new protocols. Every ship would carry improved weapons for self-defense. Every crew would receive training in first contact situations. But most importantly, every explorer would understand the mission. Learn, discover, share knowledge, but never surrender Earth's independence. The Frontier's crew dispersed to new assignments. Amy Carter joined the team designing better jump drives. Brooks became an expert on alien cultures. Rachel Ford trained new pilots. Each of them carried the lessons of those 3 days in space. Dr. Lisa Grant started a program teaching crews how to maintain calm during crises. Fear is natural, she told her students. But panic is a choice. You can be afraid and still function. That's what the Frontier crew showed. We were terrified, but we kept working. That made all the difference. Greg Palmer returned to his botanical research but gave frequent talks about staying useful in emergencies. When you don't know what else to do your job, he would say. Your job is familiar. Your job gives you focus. The tomatoes still needed care even when warships surrounded us. That simple fact kept me sane. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the consequences of the Frontier's departure rippled outward. The leader made a historic announcement. For 200 years, we have paid tribute to the Empire. We have submitted to their authority. But the humans showed us another way. They showed us that submission is a choice, not a requirement. The collective declares independence. We will pay no more tribute. They sent ships to enforce compliance. They did not fight, but they did not surrender. They simply refused to acknowledge authority. Confused and uncertain, the fleet. They had never dealt with peaceful refusal before. Other species watched, other species questioned. Within a year, 5 more civilizations declared independence from the Empire. None of them fought, they all simply said no. The Union sent a diplomatic mission to Earth. Observer led the delegation. We come seeking alliance, she told Earth's representatives. They have dominated our region you showed us that domination can be rejected. We wish to learn from you. Earth's response was measured. We're not building an anti-alliance. We're not trying to fight them or replace them. We simply want to exist as free people. If you want the same, that's your choice. But we won't help you make war. We don't want war, assured them. We want what you have, the courage to stand alone. That's not something we can give you, Earth's ambassador replied. That's something you have to find in yourselves. On the capital world, the crisis deepened. High Chancellor faced the Imperial Council amid growing unrest. 5 systems have declared independence, Counselor reported angrily. Dozens more are questioning our authority. The humans did this. Their defiance inspired rebellion across the region. The humans did nothing except leave our space, Counselor countered. We created this problem ourselves. For 3,000 years, we ruled through fear. Now species realize they don't need to be afraid. That's not the humans' fault. That's ours. Admiral stood before the council to answer for his decision to let the Frontier escape. I disobeyed orders, he said plainly. I accept punishment, but I will not apologize. The humans were peaceful explorers who stumbled into our space by accident. Destroying them would have been murder, not justice. You showed weakness, accused. I showed mercy, corrected. There is a difference. The council debated for weeks. Some wanted to make an example of, others wanted to make an example of the humans, but High Chancellor made a different choice. The Empire faces a crisis of identity, he announced. We defined ourselves by our dominance. Now that dominance is questioned, we can respond with violence, trying to force submission through fear, or we can change. We can become a power that other species choose to join rather than fear to resist. That is weakness, spat. Is it? Asked. The humans walked away from us. 5 other species followed their example. If we are so strong, why can't we make anyone stay? Perhaps true strength is measured differently than we thought. The council dissolved in argument. The Empire began a slow, painful transformation. Some factions pushed for reform. Others demanded a return to traditional conquest. The debate would continue for years. 6 months after the Frontier's return, Captain Daniel Hayes received an unexpected visitor at the Naval Academy. A shuttle requested permission to land. Earth Defense Command granted it warily. A single emerged. It was Lieutenant, the young officer who had questioned Imperial policy. I come alone and unarmed, announced. I seek to speak with Captain Hayes. They met in Daniel's office, two beings from different worlds sitting across a desk from each other. I resigned my commission, explained. I could no longer serve an empire that rules through fear. Your example showed me another path. What path is that? Daniel asked. Cooperation instead of domination, respect instead of submission. I have come to Earth to learn from you. Daniel smiled. We're not perfect, Lieutenant. Earth has its own problems, its own history of empire and conquest. We're still learning to live up to our ideals. But you try, said. When faced with our empire, you chose freedom over safety. That choice inspired thousands, including me. What will you do now? Daniel asked. I don't know, admitted. But I want to understand how a civilization can be strong without being cruel. How power can coexist with dignity. Your people seem to know this. I wish to learn. Daniel stood and extended his hand. Then welcome to Earth, Lieutenant. We'll learn from each other. They shook hands, human, and starting a friendship that would eventually bridge their worlds. Years later, Daniel Hayes retired from teaching. He spent his final lecture talking about the principles that had guided his crew during those 3 days in space. Freedom is not given, he told his students. It's not earned. It's inherent in who you are as thinking beings. Empires can threaten you. They can kill you. But they cannot take your freedom unless you surrender it. Remember that when you face impossible choices. Remember that you always have the right to say no. And sometimes, saying no and accepting the consequences is the most powerful thing you can do. The students applauded. Some would become explorers, some would become diplomats, some would become teachers like Hayes, but all of them would carry forward the lesson of the frontier. Earth continued exploring the galaxy. They made contact with dozens of species. Some were friendly, some were hostile, some were indifferent, but Earth approached all of them the same way, with respect, with openness, and with an absolute refusal to surrender their independence. The empire slowly reformed. It took decades, but eventually it transformed from a power that demanded submission to one that offered partnership. Not because Earth defeated them, but because Earth showed them that forced loyalty was worthless. Real cooperation required choice. The galaxy changed, slowly, gradually, but fundamentally. Species began to understand that strength and freedom could coexist, that choosing peace over domination wasn't weakness, that saying no to power sometimes required more courage than any battle. And it all started because one human ship crossed accidentally into an empire and shocked everyone by simply walking away. Captain Daniel Hayes died peacefully at age 93, surrounded by family. His last words were simple: "We stayed free, that's all that mattered." At his funeral, representatives from dozens of alien species came to honor him. Humans, and many others stood together, united in their respect for a man who had shown them all that true strength came from knowing what you stood for and refusing to compromise it. On his headstone, they carved the words he had lived by. Freedom is not negotiable, peace is not submission, and sometimes the bravest choice is simply to walk away. The galaxy remembered, learned what it meant for humanity's future in the galaxy. They had crossed into a galactic empire and walked away, and somehow the galaxy would never be quite the same. The fleet waited in silent formation, weapons ready but not firing. And across the galaxy, millions of beings watched a small human ship and wondered if freedom was really worth dying for. The humans already knew the answer. Daniel sat down in his command chair and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, the whole galaxy was watching a small human ship surrounded by an empire's might. Let them watch, he thought. Let them see what happens when you tell humans they have no choice. Humans always had a choice, and sometimes the choice was simply to say no. And you will remain where you are. The screen went black again. Daniel let out a slow breath. This was going to be complicated.